blow echoed like a gunshot down Lenox Avenue. September 14, 1931, 2047 p.m. Officer Patrick O'Reilly's hand struck the face of Margaret Johnson, a 58-year-old woman walking home from Abyssinian Baptist Church. The crack sliced through the afternoon air. Sharp, brutal, deliberate. The street froze. Merchants stopped selling. Musicians fell silent. Children stopped playing. Conversations trailed off mid-sentence. 200 people watched as a white police officer humiliated a black mother in the heart of Harlem. A woman in her Sunday best. A woman with a Bible. A woman who had done nothing more than stand on the sidewalk that Officer O'Reilly considered his personal domain. And 200 people watched as her son, Bumpy Johnson, did nothing. He didn't hit, didn't scream, didn't even move. He simply stood there, about 2 meters away from his mother, watching her stagger back from the force of the blow, watching her clutch her face in her hand, watching tears well up in her eyes. Not from pain, but from shame. From the knowledge that her son couldn't protect her because the man who had hit her wore a police badge. Bumpy's face betrayed nothing but his eyes. Witnesses would later say they had never seen eyes like them. Cold, empty, like staring into a bottomless well. O'Reilly laughed, a loud, booming laugh that echoed off the brownstones. He twirled his baton, adjusted his cap, and looked straight at Bumpy. "So what are you going to do, kid? Call the cops," he laughed again. "Oh, wait. I am the cops." Then he walked away slowly and casually. Like a man who owned the world, Officer Patrick O'Reilly had 72 hours to live. He just didn't know it yet. To understand what happened next, you have to know who Patrick O'Reilly was in Harlem in 1931. O'Reilly wasn't just any cop. He was the 28th Precinct's enforcer. The man you sent when you wanted to hurt someone, not arrest them. He'd been on the force for 11 years, and in that time had built a reputation that made grown men cross the street the moment they saw him. O'Reilly extorted protection money from black businesses. Those who paid up had their shops mysteriously burned down. He extorted money from illegal gamblers, keeping half their earnings and still arresting them if they complained. He had beaten at least a dozen men so brutally that they ended up in Harlem Hospital, and none of those beatings resulted in any disciplinary action. Why? Because O'Reilly had friends. The captain of the 28th Precinct was his wife's cousin. The local councilman played poker with him every Thursday, and the Irish Mafia, which wielded real power in the New York City Police Department in 1931, protected him because O'Reilly was useful. He terrorized Harlem. He kept the black criminals in check. He was the driving force, and O'Reilly knew it. He strode through Harlem like a king, brandishing his baton, his badge gleaming, secure in the knowledge that no one could harm him. Not the community, not the law, no one. That Tuesday afternoon, O'Reilly had been in a particularly bad mood. He had lost money the previous evening betting on a boxing match. His captain had reprimanded him for showing up drunk to roll call, and now this elderly black woman, walking far too slowly on the sidewalk, was blocking his way on his afternoon patrol. "Go," O'Reilly had barked. Margaret Johnson was 58 years old. She was born in Charleston, South Carolina, in 1873, 8 years after the Civil War ended. She had seen things that would have broken most people. She had survived the Jim Crow era. She had survived poverty. She had raised her son Bumpy under the most difficult circumstances. And she had learned, like all black people in America, to stand down in the face of white authority figures. So when Officer O'Reilly ordered her to move aside, she said, "Yes, sir," and tried to step aside. But she wasn't quick enough for O'Reilly's anger. That's when he raised his hand. That's when the blow echoed down Lenox Avenue. That's when everything changed. Bumpy Johnson was 24 years old in September 1931. He had already served 2 prison sentences, one for robbery, one for assault. He had already earned a reputation as someone not to be messed with. He managed pawn shops. He protected local businesses from white gangsters who wanted to interfere in their circles. He became an important figure in Harlem's underworld. But when he stood there on Lenox Avenue and watched a police officer beat his mother, Bump was done. He stood there while 200 people watched him fail to protect the woman who had protected him his entire life. Silence fell. Then O'Reilly spoke. "I thought so. You black people are all the same. Tough when you steal from each other, but stand up to a real man. He tapped his badge on the ground, and you knew where you stood. He spat on the sidewalk beside Margaret's feet. Tell your boy not to get into trouble, Mammy. Next time, it's more than just a slap. Then he walked away, whistling. Bumpy Johnson didn't move for a full minute after O'Reilly left. The crowd was silent. No one knew what to say. You didn't console a man after something like that. The humiliation was too profound. Finally, Bumpy went to his mother and gently took her arm. Come on, let's go home, Mama. Margaret Johnson looked up at her son, saw the look on his face, and she knew. She knew what was coming. She recognized that look when Bumpy was 14 and a white shopkeeper had cheated him. When he was 19 and a prison guard had beaten him for no reason. When he was 22 and a rival gangster had treated him disrespectfully. That look meant someone was going to pay. Ellsworth, she said quietly, using his real name. Don't do anything stupid. The man has the law on his side. Bumpy didn't reply, he just walked her home in silence. But everyone on Lenox Avenue would say the same thing later that day. Bumpy's silence was more terrifying than any threat he could have uttered. What happened over the next 72 hours is legendary in Harlem. Bumpy didn't act immediately. He didn't let his anger lead him to do something stupid. Instead, he did what he always did. He thought, he planned, he organized. From hour 1 to 12, Bumpy didn't talk to criminals, but to laborers, porters, waiters, shoeshine boys, to people invisible to men like O'Reilly. People who knew everything because no one paid them any attention. Within 6 hours, Bumpy knew O'Reilly's entire daily routine. Where he lived, an apartment on the Upper West Side. Where he drank, Miserly's Ale House. When his shift started, 6 went a ram. When it ended, 2 p.m. Where he went afterward, different every day, but always alone for at least 20 minutes. From hour 12 to midnight, Bumpy analyzed O'Reilly's connections, mapped out who was protecting him, the cousin, the captain, the city councilman, the links to the Irish mafia. It was no longer about revenge. The goal was to send a message that would resonate throughout every police precinct in New York City. That day, O'Reilly was bragging at the precinct, telling his colleagues how he put a black woman in her place, laughing at the son who'd stood by cowardly, and even demonstrating the slap, his hand flicking through the air as his buddies giggled. What O'Reilly didn't realize was that a black janitor was mopping the floor, listening, remembering everything, and reporting it to Bumpy. Between 24 and 48 hours, O'Reilly started to notice things. A man reading a newspaper at the bar, but not drinking. A car that seemed to follow him for 3 blocks before turning. A face he'd seen twice that day in different parts of the city. O'Reilly wasn't stupid. He'd made enemies. He instructed some colleagues to keep their eyes peeled, but they laughed at him. You're paranoid, Pat. Nobody's stupid enough to attack a cop. Between the 48th and 72nd hour, O'Reilly's captain called him into the office. Patrick, I'm hearing voices. When I heard you had an altercation with a black woman upstairs and her son is Bumpy Johnson. O'Reilly shrugged. So what? I slapped her. She was blocking the sidewalk. What's Johnson gonna do? Cry? The captain looked concerned. Patrick, listen to me. Take a few days off. Go to your brothers in Boston. Let things cool down. O'Reilly laughed. I'm not going to run from some black thug. Let him try something. I'll shoot him and sleep like a baby. That was Wednesday evening, September 16, 1931. Thursday morning, September 17, 31. Officer Patrick O'Reilly left his apartment at 5:47 a.m. He went to the subway station to catch his shift at the precinct at 620 Sembro. The streets were empty. It was dark before dawn. The streets were empty. It was dark before dawn. A few streetlights cast patches of yellow light. O'Reilly never reached the subway. What happened in those 4 blocks? No one knows for sure. No witnesses, no struggle, no gunshots, no screams. One moment, Officer Patrick O'Reilly was walking down West 85th Street. The next moment, he was gone. His wife? He came closer and his breath caught in his throat. It was Patrick O'Reilly. But it wasn't the O'Reilly he knew. This man's eyes were empty, glassy, staring into space. His lips moved, but no sound came out. His body was covered in bruises, not the kind that kill you, but the kind that make you long for death. And stuck to his chest, just over his heart, was a handwritten note, neatly written. Respect mothers. Murphy tried to untie him. Pat. Pat, what happened? Who did this? O'Reilly's head turned slowly, his mouth opened. I'm sorry. That was all he said, turned slowly, his mouth opened. I'm sorry. That was all he said. Just those two words over and over again. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, and tried to get him to talk. Patrick, who did this? Where were you? What happened? O'Reilly just stared straight ahead, his lips trembling. I'm sorry. They took him to Bellevue Hospital. The doctors examined him. Physically, he was relatively unharmed. Bruises, dehydration, signs of prolonged restraint, but no broken bones, no permanent damage, nothing that could explain his stare. Psychologically, Officer Patrick O'Reilly was shattered. The police psychiatrist interviewed him for 2 hours, asking questions and trying to reconstruct the events of the past 72 hours. O'Reilly answered every question the same way. I'm sorry, what's your name? I'm sorry. What's your name? I'm sorry. What were you? I'm sorry. Who did this to you? I'm sorry. It didn't matter what they asked. It didn't matter how they asked it. His psyche was broken, shattered. Whatever had happened in those 72 hours had erased everything except those 2 words. The psychiatrist report stated, the patient exhibits severe psychological trauma consistent with prolonged extreme stress. The patient is unresponsive to any questions. Recommendation, immediate admission to a psychiatric hospital and suspension from duty. Translation, Officer O'Reilly had lost his mind. The New York Police Department panicked. They searched every establishment in Harlem. They brought in every known criminal for questioning. They offered immunity, money, anything for information about O'Reilly's fate. Nothing. No one talked. No one knew anything. And the few who might have known looked the investigators straight in the eye and said, I don't know what you're talking about. The forensic team examined O'Reilly's body for evidence. They found nothing usable for evidence. They found nothing usable. The bruises suggested restraints, ropes, maybe chains, but the exact type couldn't be determined. No fingerprints, no fibers, no DNA traces. It was 1931. Back then, there were no sophisticated forensic methods. They analyzed the suicide note. Standard paper, standard pencil. The handwriting didn't match any in their database. There was no way to trace it. They interviewed the 200 witnesses from Lenox Avenue who had seen O'Reilly hit Margaret Johnson. Every single one said the same thing. I don't remember seeing anything unusual. The New York Police Department knew who was responsible. Everyone knew it, Bumpy Johnson. But they couldn't prove it. Bumpy had an alibi for the entire 72 hours. He'd been visiting his sick aunt in New Jersey, and a dozen witnesses corroborated his statement. His known accomplices, all present, all with alibis, all innocent. The investigation dragged on for 6 months, then a year. Then it was quietly closed. Officially, an unsolved case of assault and kidnapping. Unofficially, never speak of it again. Officer Patrick O'Reilly never returned to duty. He was discharged from the NYPD in December 1931 for medical reasons. He received a pension and psychiatric treatment, but nothing helped. He spent the rest of his life in mental institutions. His wife left him. His friends turned their backs on him. He became a shadow of his former self, still formally alive, but inwardly non-existent. And for the next 37 years until his death in 1968, Patrick O'Reilly said only 2 words, I'm sorry. To the nurses, to the doctors, to the visitors, to the walls, to himself, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. The other officers in the 28th precinct understood the message clearly. What Bumpy Johnson had done to Ari was worse than killing him. Death would have been a release. Instead, Bumpy had done something so terrible, so psychologically destructive, that O'Reilly couldn't bear it. And the beauty of it, there was no evidence, no body, no crime scene, just a broken man on a property. A message so clear, so devastating, that it resonates for generations. Officer O'Reilly thought he could punch a black woman in broad daylight and laugh it off. He was wrong. 72 hours later, he was found naked and mentally deranged, apologizing to ghosts for the rest of his life. And Bumpy Johnson? He returned to protect Harlem, to resume his business, to be king again. Because that's what kings do. They protect their people. They punish disrespect and make sure the lesson is never forgotten. Respect mothers, or you'll be apologizing for the rest of your life. If this story touched you, you know what to do. Subscribe to our channel. We tell the Bumpy Johnson stories that aren't in the history books. The genius, the strategy, the code of honor. Leave a comment. What do you think happened during those 72 hours? And would you rather die or end up like O'Reilly? Don't miss next week. We'll tell you how Bumpy Johnson walked into Lucy Luciano's office unarmed and left as an equal. You can't miss this. Harlem didn't need superheroes. They had Bumpy Johnson, and Bumpy Johnson's revenge wasn't murder. It was mercy. A mercy worse than